The thing that Helen Bonham read out at the teachers' conference in Birmingham. Do you remember about the two different children?
Yes.
Do you have it here?
No.
Just wondering if it might be quite good to read, and it's been sent to me somewhere on my email. I'm not just checking Facebook and trying to find it.
All about focus.
Yeah.
Difficult in this age.
About.
Oh, John's turning 30 now.
Okay. Shall we?
I don't think I'm going to find it.
Are you swapping or shall we wait?
I think we're swapping.
You're swapping. That's fine.
We did it.
Screens. We don't.
We have Michael.
Yeah. My son has one hour screen time. We have no time actually. Although he does pester his mother to play with Angry Birds.
They always find things.
And they're so good at it. They go, oh, I can do that.
Where did you learn this?
I have this story that an Indian educationist got a computer turning over a wall in a slum area and just put it in. And within a month, all the kids in the neighbourhood could surf the internet, type a few and talk themselves really badly English without any instructions.
Did you see this good top?
Okay. I think we're going to bring it back because we've got a pub staff party tonight, so that's very important. Obviously, not to go late. So there are lots of handouts, but I'm just going to give you one of these, and then you can take the other ones as you're interested or not. So I think to wrap up what we were talking about before, now that you're all reading the piece of paper instead of anyway, I think to sum up really that Dr. Suzuki's approach came out of the philosophy, and therefore I think as a useful first step for any kind of problem that you're having or any kind of thinking that you want to do about your relationship with Suzuki, your relationship with practice, with the performing with your child, in that through that prism is to try and go back to the philosophy and find which facet has affected your situation. So like you were saying, you know, we just seem to be in a negative cycle of and that maybe you can actually trace that back to the environment, and therefore you know, okay, what I need to try and do is to try and change the environment and get back to an even keel where he feels safe, we feel happy, and then we can get going on and actually being productive in practice, rather than you just need to do what I tell you, and then when you do what I tell you, everything will be fine, because then you'll learn the next piece. So I think that the philosophy is a really important thing, and it's a very easy thing to lose track of. Like, there's a lot of talking here between the teachers about parent education, and I kind of find myself thinking, wow, the longer I teach, the less parent education I do, because I think actually if you can ground yourself and your families in that philosophical approach, then actually that really answers most of the questions if you've got the time and the energy to think from there outwards. And a lot of the parent education that I think teachers end up doing is how you solve this particular problem. Well, that's only ever going to solve that particular problem. It's not going to help you with the next problem that comes along, which inevitably it will. And there are also lots and lots of books and lots of websites and lots of things that you can look at to get specific problems sorted out. But I think to go back to the philosophy in the first place is a useful and a correct approach. So top tips for actually practicing, and the talk was entitled Happy Practicing, and I know how hard it is, and I think it's really important for us, and now I'm talking more as a parent, with the practice to work out, and it's different for every family, where the line between this is productive work, it's not always pleasant, but we're getting towards where we want to be going, where that line and the alternative, which is we're getting stuck in a rut, it's very unpleasant, we both want to quit, or he's not learning the pieces, or she's not playing in group, or the kind of symptomatic side of things, that you have to tailor your behaviour towards your child in practice according to where you are on that line. And so if you feel that you're stuck in a rut and you're not going to the place that you want to go, where is that place? Is that place actually, if you're on perpetual motion, about learning allegretto? I really hope not. It really doesn't matter if your child learns allegretto quickly or slowly. It can feel like it really matters. It's something that I struggle with as a parent a lot with Tilly. I really have to work hard at letting go of, she's got to look like the most excellent child who's going really quickly, who's doing all of the Suzuki stuff perfectly. Doesn't she have a wonderful bow hold? This is a very, very steep learning curve for me. And I hope that by being open and honest about that, I can help you all with that same thing that I think a lot of us suffer from. And also the opposite, that if your child has been in the beginner group for 4 years and you've watched 2 other generations of children go into the book 1 group, that's a problem, and that's not good for that child. And we need to be honest. I mean, I think really, Dr. Suzuki didn't say that part of his fundamental philosophy was to be honest, I suspect, because it's so obvious. But, to really be honest about these things and to be mindful of how we are with our relationship with it all is so, so important, because you can just get stuck in the microcosm of it all, and then it is just that half an hour a day where you're just battling and you just hope that one day it will magically stop being a battle. Well, it won't, unless you actually actively try and change that. So top tips: stay happy even if you have to pretend. Tilly and I did many months of practicing where I had to be Little Red Riding Hood's grandma. I'm not a naturally goofy person. My students, we play games, we do silly things, but I don't really very often get into literally play acting. I don't really like it. It's silly.
You haven't told me that. That's
But
partly because she's not in my lesson.
Literally for a long time, she would, and also, like Simon says, if you said, okay, let's do 10 bow holds, she'd go, I'm only doing it for Little Red Riding Hood's grandma, you've got to do the voice. I'd be like, oh my God. So, you do have to be a bit of an actor and a bit of a performer, and you have to, I think, while we're all busy talking about being honest and being, mindful and all of that stuff, it kind of can seem like a bit of a jarring thing to say that you have to pretend. But what are you pretending? You're pretending to be happy to play a stupid game to get your child to engage with their practice. Well, that's not really pretense, is it? Because you are happy that your child is engaging with their practice. If it works. If it doesn't work, then maybe you need to try Robin Hood or something instead.
I sometimes propose that I will dance to what she plays.
Oh, perfect.
So then when this because then it's also about listen.
Yeah.
Because that makes it more fun.
Yeah.
And it's like you do, and I make a clown of myself.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you kind of.
You have to really let go worrying about being silly.
When we
I
got
think
right-
if you are worried about your child thinking you're being silly, then that's very difficult with the young ones.
When we got really stuck, she became the teacher
Yeah.
at one point, and that worked really well.
Yeah.
The thing I realised about that is she was much kinder teacher than me. She was modelling being a nice teacher. She was really, really kind, found positive things
That's
to say.
quite interesting.
And I was kind of
Yeah. It's amazing. I mean, one of the
focusing on the
things.
negative and she,
Yeah. One of the things we do, every group class is solos, or almost every group class. And if a child plays a solo, the children have to say something positive. And some children find it very difficult to find a positive thing, especially if there's a glaring error. If the child has gone wrong in the middle, there are some kids in the class who the best that they might be able to manage is when you made a mistake, you still kept going. I'm like, that's sort of positive, but it's not really entirely positive.
Yeah,
And you know, I have
banned it from my
Yeah.
positive comments.
Yeah.
But it's a fantastic thing to
Yes.
do.
Yeah.
Because it's very moving to see how the children, as parents, how they react to
Yeah.
what is going on,
Yeah.
and that they really try. And
Yeah.
I thought it's very nice to. I never thought of this kind of interaction between
Yeah.
listening and then feedback, and I thought it's a very
Yeah.
nice exercise. I think it's a
And
great
we-
thing to watch as a
Yeah.
parent.
I think a lot of, sorry.
Sorry. We, Tilly's,
That's
Dennis.
my daughter, by the way.
Yeah.
Tilly's
Tilly's
father's
father's partner thought that this would be a great thing to do even on an adult level. He just said, you know, how good it would be if you got up and spoke to a group of people as an adult. He's a university lecturer, but how powerful that is about positive comments, and that we just don't do it enough. And maybe that's something that's really lacking in our culture about just praising each other and like honestly. And it is something that I notice. And I'm not just saying this to big up the Suzuki world, but it's something that I notice around the teachers who I work with, because I work in a school environment as well, 4 days a week in an international school. And the Suzuki teachers, I've noticed, do actually just out of the blue give people praise for just not for anything particular. I mean, even if it's something, you know, as kind of shallow as, oh, I really like your scarf, or you cut your hair, that's really nice. And, you know, anything like that, but it's something that I just think is missing from life, and maybe that's one of the big puzzles about mankind stepping forwards.
Yes.
It also informs the way you look at life too, because if you look at the positive in life, I tend to be do that, you know, the favourite things.
Yeah.
You know, when I'm feeling bad, I automatically look for it, and I think that's something that is it's a really good skill to have, because you know, just you look positive in your situation, and then if you teach them that from early on, there's always something positive you can find.
Yeah.
It just makes you a happier person.
And it's amazing how many parents really struggle to find the positive thing in something that's not perfect. And I think, you know, it's really important for us as teachers to be really aware that that it's very easy to talk about the learning curve as if there's one. And actually it's like, I think much more interesting to think about, you know, like an entire sort of, not even a rainbow because that's too few, but, you know, multiple rainbows of different levels of learning curve. And you might find it very easy to remember how to form a good bow hold or how to make a good mouth shape for blowing the flute, but find it very difficult to actually look at a child who's done something reasonably well and find 5 things to praise them about. And it's not always that you need to enunciate those 5 things, but you know, if you can't see them, that is your next learning target, you know.
Can I just tell one short anecdote? I know we've got no, it's not going to embarrass you at all. We've got plenty, we could go back and forth for hours, I'm sure, in that respect. Probably more this way. Anyway, our mother, who's also a Suzuki teacher, she was on the course in the summer and just going on about not being able to see what was going on with your child or being able to see past a certain point. And a parent had said to her, my child just can't follow instructions, she just won't listen. She can't, she's like, you know, I just feel like she cannot, you know, just follow even basic instructions. She just won't. She just doesn't listen to people. And so what Jane did is that she sat and watched a group lesson, and every time there was even the smallest instruction, like put your feet shoulder width apart to the group, she made a mark. And in half an hour, how many marks do you think that this girl got for following instructions? Have a guess. I can't remember the exact number, but ballpark.
25?
Between 200 and 300. It was like 216 or something. I can't remember the exact. But this mother was like, she said, you know, I literally just made a mark every time that she did what she was told. And I think that's really important to think that sometimes what you're thinking about what the child is trying to do, this is the next part I haven't really worked out how to say, but I think you'll kind of understand what I'm getting at, is that sometimes your priority about what you thinking the way they should be doing something is masking all of the things that they are doing really well, and that might be one way to kind of try and reassess the situation and go, okay, I can find real positives, even if I'm not feeling good about it, you know, and stay happy is keeping the practice happy, you know, really. That's, I think.
I'm sure that's true, but on the other hand, I've become aware that kids who are known to be very well behaved away from the family are not. They test out all their boundaries with their parents. So you know, my son will be a model, well, relatively good pupil with his teacher here, and will be, oh yes, comes home. I say exactly the same things. He's messing around because this home is the safe environment where he can push all those boundaries.
Yeah.
So it's what you say, I'm sure, is true, but there is the child-parent relationship as well.
Yeah.
So maybe do that experiment next practice, where you just make a mark for everything that you've asked him to do, including maybe, you know, can you look at me? Like any instruction, whether it's actually verbalised or intimated, and just make a little mark and see how many you have. And you probably won't have 216 because it's not with a teacher, but I'd be surprised if you had fewer than 20. And it might just make you see the different perspective of it. And that kind of brings us on to number 2 of the top tips. Which I kind of thought maybe it should be number 1, maybe it should be number 2. Anyway, going in the top. Remember that your top job, is to make your child want to practice. And that is not the same thing as making them practice.
Yeah.
Are you going? Yes. I'll leave Rick to sort that. That's 3 different ones, and this is just a whole heap, but they'll just be on the desk. Oh yeah, the next time you come in.
I have a question about that.
Great, thank you.
Pleasure.
I have a stored up question which I've come with about.
Okay, can I come to you in a moment? Thank you. Robin was asking earlier about, you know, we've all, I think, probably met people whose parents made them do it, possibly for years, possibly in a very, very high pressure environment, possibly not, who it has completely soured their relationship with music entirely, not even just with their instrument. And, you know, this feels, therefore, of course, like a risk that we all want to avoid. And I think I've never, well, certainly within our, I didn't ask you, but I know the answer, within our kind of peer group of kids who did Suzuki, with teachers and parents who really bought into this difference, that your job is to make them want to do it, not just to ensure, you know, cooperation. That is really the crucial difference. And I don't know anybody who has come, I know plenty of people who haven't played their instrument for 20 years, but I don't know anybody who won't go to a concert, who, you know, whose relationship with it has become angry. And
wow, interestingly, I've only met one person who's actually training to be a Suzuki teacher, who, and I think it's exactly one of the reasons we were talking about, you know, because there's now a big generation of teachers who used to be Suzuki students who now want to keep doing it. And she actually, when we were talking about, you know, our really positive experience, she said, actually, no, I didn't. And because my mother was hypercritical and she did do the approach, but if I did a solo and it wasn't very good, she'd really hammer in the negatives. And I think and that was just clearly a misunderstanding of the Suzuki philosophy and the approach, and how, you know, the only way that this is really going to go wrong, and the way that one of the biggest worries of all of the parents that I have in my studio is that my kids are going to hate me, or that this is going to be something that they're going to take as adults and it's going to be like ammunition, that my childhood was horrible because you made me practice. The only way that's going to happen is if you misunderstand the philosophy and you make it like that. If you actually just continue to say, well, we're just doing this until you're 18, and you know, we're just going to make it as fun as possible, and no, giving up is not an option, and you still can follow these things. I mean, the last time we had a parent talk here, talking about embarrassing moments, I said this to a whole group of parents. I said, well, when I was a kid, I was just told that we had to play until we were 18, and that was that. And my mother was sitting here, and my sister was sitting here, and they both went, that's not exactly how it happened. And I was like, what? And it was 13 for all of the kids, and then
The two oldest.
for the two elder kids. And when I was 11, I was still talking about wanting to give up, and 12, still wanting to talk about giving up. I don't remember having a horrible time in practice. My mother certainly does. She's got a scrapbook, and the highlight of it says, today we had no screaming, kicking, crying, shouting, punching.
That was when you were 5. Can I just add?
Okay, yes, not 12.
It's not 12.
I wasn't being up my
But can I add something to that? I did music as a child.
Yeah.
I mean, and then till whatever I went to university. And of course, some moments are tough. I didn't do Suzuki, but I enjoyed also because I went to music and played together. But for us, the principle was, you can stop, but you finish the year. And at that point, so the cycle was always like the school cycle. At the end, we have a recital, and then the question will come: do you want to start again in September? Oh yeah, because you wrote 1 year to an end, and you have a goal that you do this whatever exam or recital.
Yeah.
And then my mother said you cannot stop midway, but we can see once you have done the whole year whether you want to continue. And then so it was, and this I say to Zena when we have very frustrating moments. I said, you don't have to do it, but we finish what we understand to be one cycle. Then you can say you don't want to do it. That's fine. It's not for me to do it. Anyway,
I think it's very.
Yeah.
I just want to finish that story, and just a little bit, which is that I did get to a point, and I don't think that my mother wasn't being horrible to me, and was still doing the positive, but it was just really challenging, and I was a challenging student. My first teacher says I'm still the most challenging student she's ever had when I was young. But now, I had an experience when I was 12, and it didn't mean that practicing was suddenly fun, but now I am literally over the moon that my mum just didn't give up. Like, it almost brings me to tears every time I sort of start talking about this, because it's really emotional for me. It's like laid out a path for me in my life, in my social life, my professional life, that just wouldn't have happened if she had just gone, you know what, I just can't be bothered. You know, you're too, it's just too hard.
I think it's really, fundamentally, it has to be your own personal decision, a decision between two parents if you're in a two-parent family, what your approach to your child wanting to stop is. We have a very clear-cut set of two groups here, which nearly everybody falls into one or the other. And one is, my child wants to learn the violin or the cello or the flute or the cello or the viola, and so I'm coming to you because you guys seem to be a good place to do it. Or I want my child to learn, and therefore I'm bringing them to you. And I think that first impulse makes a big difference to what happens when the child wants to stop, because most parents who have brought their child because they wanted to start are quite happy to stop bringing them because they want to stop. And most parents who have brought them because they want their kid to do it are less happy for them to stop, and will try to keep them going more. And obviously, it would be a bit strange if I sat here and said I'm perfectly happy for people to just let their kids stop. I think an interesting sort of exercise to do on it is just to think, how many people have we met who are regretful that they were made to do music? We could just ask, how many people do you think you've met in your lifetime who are sad that they were made to do music as a kid?
No.
No.
It's a complex question, because both my aunt was a professional musician, my mother was a very good musician, but and they had the same mother who was a music teacher, and she used to stand over them with a hairbrush, and she used to whack them on the hands if they didn't get it right. My aunt carried on, and was grateful to her mother. My late mother was traumatised.
So that's a very awful story, but that's still one. Sorry to make it that simplistic, but okay.
I can tell another horror story like that, but there's no need to add.
Maybe
to
one or two?
No, I mean, I know someone, he's a professional musician and he was taught Suzuki, his parents are Japanese, but he was once beaten into hospital age 6 because he didn't want to practice his violin.
But that is
That's
just
not
abuse.
about-
That is
it's not
abuse.
about
We
the
have to
music.
actually just be clear about that. That's nothing
So-
to do with Suzuki.
He's,
That's
he's a
just-
musician today, but that doesn't mean it came with joy
No,
as he was
absolutely.
growing up.
Absolutely.
Both those things are not about the music,
No.
they're about the aggression. aren't they?
Yeah, yeah.
Peter, you know
I do know.
this person.
I do know two. Well, I know
Two.
two who
Two.
are violinists who both gave up, but they are both very accomplished women with PhDs and stuff like that. So it may well have helped them in other ways.
Okay, but
And
two.
my mother-in-law was a concert pianist, and although she very pleased her mother gave her music, she didn't really have a childhood. She's now trying to round herself out as a person because she didn't do anything else.
Okay, so maybe three.
So,
max.
although she doesn't regret doing it,
Yeah.
she has some ambivalence
Yeah.
about.
Okay, so we'll go with two.
I mean, I've spoken to a lot of people who talk about, no, not a lot. I mean, how many people have I met? Just to say the question again.
How many people have you met who regret being made to do music as a child?
One or two. I
Okay.
talk about music all the time.
Okay.
So.
So this is then the quick second half. How many have you met who say, I wish my parents hadn't let me quit?
Yeah,
Do you think roughly?
yeah, more than 5.
More than 5?
Yeah.
Just don't talk about music.
I do. I love music deeply,
I know
very
you do,
deeply,
darling.
on many levels.
To
But
start asking all the parents, when
Yes.
you were a child.
I do hear the children, and they seem quite
Yeah.
content to be here.
Yeah, yeah.
They may give the impression that they don't want to, but what is the reaction they're getting? I
Yeah,
think sometimes it's a contribution of a lot of things.
absolutely.
You know, it's not
Yeah.
just, you know, do you like music, don't you like music? Children will do things, and the only way you get that they're enjoying it is by the response you get back. So if they, even if you get one technique right within a period of 3 years, then I believe that that's enough for them to stick with it, you know, because it's going to help them in their lifestyle.
Right.
It's more than that.
Yeah.
But personally, I've met no one who
Okay.
regrets.
Tim, any who
Yeah,
regret
I'm
being
sure
allowed
a
to
lot,
quit?
a lot of people say all they wish they hadn't.
Mm. I wish my parents hadn't let me stop. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I hear that. a lot.
Tintana?
I can't think of any. I can think of people who said, I wish I'd learned music, but I can't think of the parental thing.
Okay.
The reason I'm here, well, the kids desperately want to play violin, but I was really wanted to play music as a kid, and my mum just wasn't practicing or listening or having me practice where she could hear, so I didn't. So I stopped playing. I did really well, and then at a point I needed support. So that's why I became Suzuki parent. I something, God, am I doing that thing where you fluctuate and do the complete opposite, and do it in a positive way, and not in a kind of like, right, you will practice, right? Because I wasn't given that. So.
Wait, would you like to give a number?
Well, no, I have just realised something about. I totally understand. You know, the reason that Kate just sort of went round the group twice to see that essentially there are many more people who are upset that they were allowed to stop rather than have a negative association. But something that I've just realised while you've been asking that is because we're musicians, and as soon as we meet someone we say we're musicians, people talk about music more. So I think that's probably why the numbers didn't go doing like this, because for me, I've spoken to hundreds of people, literally hundreds in my lifetime, who went, oh, you're a violinist, oh, I played the piano, but my mum let me stop. I wish I could still play today, and I say something really unhelpful like, it's never too late, you can just start again, and they just go, yeah, whatever.
But so I think, you know, it's the hardest job to make your child want to do it, and it never. I don't know anybody who has the skills to make their child want to practice every single time it's time to practice. I think that is an unrealistic aspiration to have. But I think to think that you can get to a stage where your child is most of the time fairly happy to do most of the practice is a good goal for us to have for ourselves. And if you look a bit further down the list, you know, there are some fairly sort of what my mum would say, there's like the harsh Kate coming out. Remember, you are the adult and they are the kid. Like, it's really easy to get in that bit of like, you do it because I'm asking you to do it, and you do it because, you know, I'm in charge. Well, actually, why are you in charge? And if you are in charge, do you want your child to do it because they're not going to get whatever they're not going to get if they don't do it? Or would you rather that they did it because they're going to get something or some experience, or, you know, to turn it to the positive, a bit like if your child is listening to a soloing group, that we could either ask them to sit still or we can ask them to stop fidgeting, and one is much more effective than the other. So, you know, it is hard, and I think also you have to kind of practice some kindness towards yourself, that if you've had a rough day or you're going through a rough patch and you think, oh my God, if you are ever dreading practice because you think that you don't have the patience in you, here is what I recommend. Okay, I'm feeling really, really overstressed, overtired, I slept really badly last night, whatever. I don't think that we can do a normal practice, because I think I don't think I will be a good enough practice partner for you today. So please, will you just play me your favourite piece? Would you like to play something else? After they play, okay, that was so, so nice. I really liked, find as many positives as you can and get to the end of the piece and go, okay, I think, shall we stop? We've done our practice. You've played me something, we found some good things. If you want to work on something that you didn't do so well, we can do that, but I can't be, you know, cajoling you today. And if that means your child literally plays one thing in practice, that's fine. They've done a practice. You've been kind to yourself. You've definitely been kind to your child, because we all know what the alternative is if you're in that situation. And, you know, I think that your child will really respect you for saying, I don't think I can do it today, rather than, they'll certainly respect you a lot more than, you know, the shouty kind of, you know, just do it because I'm having a rough day kind of approach.
That opens the door to having set a precedent. You know, we did a 5-minute practice yesterday and I just had to play one piece.
Oh yeah, but you can say that's because I was feeling really terrible, but today I feel great. Okay, let's get.
Let's do 5 hours.
You know.
The next day, but the other day we only did 5 minutes. No, but today's, and then the next day, the seed is in the memory. Never, ever leave. And 5 years later, remember that 5 minutes practice? Can we do that 5 minutes practice today?
Well, then if you think that that's what she would do, that's because she's not understood what's really going on.
I think
so if she hasn't really understood what's going on, then that's a different problem.
No, but I think
okay, the alternative is that you have a practice where you're shouting at her, she's maybe crying, Ivana gets chucked across the room. That's definitely not what I would recommend.
We do the 5 minute. We have done the 5 minute practice on occasion, and I go, "Can we do that one song practice again?" I'm like, "No."
Yeah, exactly.
But I think
that was that
day. This is this day, and it will be brought up, you know, maybe a couple of times. But I just say no. That was this specific situation. I'm going to have to really watch. So that's one of the reasons I'm finding this thing that they're doing the stay happy thing. Some days they're just not going to be happy to practice. Presumably, it's
that's what I mean.
To have a not happy practice that day, even if it's a short one. It's just you don't want it to be continuously painful.
I am not expecting anybody to have 100% happy practices, and if anybody is having 100% unhappy practices, then I'm concerned.
But I think what's very good is that in a way you create also the empathy, because I do say to Zena, okay, tonight your mother is really tired, meaning you're going to make one wrong move and things are going to go up in flames. And rather than do that, say as you say, I'm tired, you know, let's just do one thing and call it a day. I think it's, you know, because I do that just as a warning. I hadn't thought, actually, I should just lower the expectations of what we want that day.
And also, you probably don't have children who are self-aware enough to say, Mummy, I'm feeling really sad today, so I think we need to do a one-piece practice, because otherwise I'm going to have a tantrum. But you probably will know when your child is like that, and you might choose to say to them, okay, I don't think that it's going to work for us to do a whole practice today, so let's do your 2 favourite things. You know, I think it's we have to be flexible and to keep in mind the long-term goal, which is to find a way to work together.
Sometimes we have play dates, and then when they have
I think
play
we should
dates,
add flexible.
they do 2 tunes before while I'm cooking, and I think, well, you know, we didn't learn anything, but also we did the thing that they know that they practice each day, even if it wasn't really learning or it wasn't anything, it was just a point of practicing was practicing the practicing.
Yeah, exactly.
This is what I was about to add, is that may feel like a day off, but it's very different from saying, I'm too tired today to do practice, so we're not doing it. But, you know, if you say, I'm really too tired to do a full practice, as Kate said, then they've still done something. It's still that every day, okay, we brush our teeth every day, we do our practice every day, we do practice on every day that we eat. It was one of Suzuki's favourite ones.
I was just going to say sometimes just doing something a bit different, or you know, there was also this one, because actually Dora's slightly gone the other way recently. She wants to do everything, every practice. She wants to go through every single piece, and sometimes I sort of do them in different ways and stuff. And I'll be like, I haven't got enough time. I've got to. But what I've said is you can do stuff outside the session. We don't have
definitely.
to do, you know, you can be playing with me while I'm doing something, or she's even followed me around the garden with the, you know, with violin while I'm doing something in the summer. So she's, you know, that was a real revelation to her. This thing that it doesn't have to be just practice. I can actually pick up the violin.
And sometimes they go, it's not practice, is it?
Yeah.
It's like, no, it's fine. So I especially like to get out to the musical and like hack away the rhythm, you know. And I just think, well, but then Rory's done it sometimes when she started playing and she said, it's not practice, is it? And I'm like, no, it's fine, it's not practice, because practice is something she started to associate with having been made to do. And it's quite nice for them to realise that they can also do it just because they want to.
Yes, you fancy doing it.
Gowns like that. His thing is that he's written a tune that he wants to play. Somebody gave him a book of movie themes. He wants to work out Hedwig's theme from Harry Potter. He wants to work out the dwarf's theme from The Hobbit. And can we do that, Dan? I go, no, you've got to do your Suzuki stuff. And I'm thinking, well, maybe I should just let him do that, but applied Suzuki principles.
Or maybe you say, okay, in a half an hour practice, let's do 20 minutes on Suzuki, and then you can spend 10 minutes working out whichever thing it is. Or like, you know, maybe he is thinking like Dora was, like, it's got to be in that time, and you can say, no, we'll just do the Suzuki stuff as quickly as we can, and then you can do it for as long as you want.
He won't, I've said to him, look, you can take up your cello any time. It's great, but he doesn't. It's always, maybe on a couple of occasions he's got his cello out and done it on his own. But he waits for the official summons.
Have you talked to your teacher? Because I mean, I don't know if it's, I know all teachers are different, but we do a lot of pieces that aren't Suzuki pieces as well. So if my child has an interest in a piece she's heard, I ask the teacher if she can do that piece, and then she carries on, she does it, and then carries on with another Suzuki piece. But she's done loads of pieces that are, I mean, like loads of pieces that are not Suzuki pieces because she's shown an interest. And I ask her teacher, and if she thinks it's appropriate.
I've got music for Hedwig's theme as well.
Okay.
That is my question for you. What is the position on that of extracurricular material?
That's down to your teacher. I would say I get very upset when I hear that teachers have said that they mustn't ever play anything that they haven't been taught, or that you know, they're not allowed to have a go at the next thing. I think that, you know, to go back to the philosophy, what we're trying to do is develop in the child a desire to learn. And if your child demonstrates a desire to learn and then gets squashed flat because they're not demonstrating the desire to learn exactly the right next thing, that is a mistake. But, I mean, I had a long discussion with my old violin teacher, who is like the grand dame of Suzuki, brought Suzuki to England from the US, where she was like, no, I will never let a book one child learn the next piece without showing them how it's supposed to go. And I was like, but Helen, that's so, like, don't you think if they want to learn it, they should have a go? Surely the position to take is, as long as you understand that I'm going to ask you to change the things you've got wrong, then yes, I'm happy for you to have a go at a book 4 piece when you're in book 2, as long as you understand that you're not doing it all completely right. But, you know, different teachers have a very different response to that. But I would speak to your teacher, and if they say, no, definitely you shouldn't play anything outside of Suzuki, send me an email.
All of the children who I teach who seem to have the easiest kind of ride of just learning new pieces and being enthusiastic and wanting to learn is because they are given that freedom, and that I try and get my students to do their practice and have exploration time to find new pieces. And if that means that they learn Ode to Joy and they want to come play it to me the next week, I go, great, that sounds good, well done, how about Allegro, you know, then that's fine. But yeah, I think that it's really important to us as directors that your children are given that freedom here. So yes.
He wants to make music. I mean,
yeah, exactly. That's key.
Yeah.
Can you put your hands up if you have a job that you get paid to do? And if you would go if you weren't paid?
Sundays.
If I would go to my job.
If you would go to your job every day.
I've done it.
None was. You guys are messing up my system here. Let's try again. I'm delighted that you all love your job so much that you would go if you weren't paid. I really like my job, but I certainly wouldn't do as much of it as I do for no money at all. And for our children, it's really essential that we recognise that we are asking them to do something, the long-term benefits of which they cannot see. A child this age cannot see that when she's 25, she's going to sit in a concert hall having an out-of-body amazing experience listening to Mahler 4 Symphony. She cannot see that, right? It's impossible. Or playing it, yeah? She can't even see that she will have a great time on music camp when she's 12. She can't even see that when she gets her next sticker, she's going to feel happy on some days, yeah? So we have to find the currency, and I'm not talking about actual money, but we have to find the currency to encourage our children to do whatever is the next step towards the long-term goal that we are setting for them. And I really recommend investing in a huge amount of stickers if your child is interested in stickers. Use a practice chart. We have practice charts for free on the desk. If they ever run out, please tell us and we'll just print some more. But like that, you can have one of these and you can put a gold star if it's a great practice, a silver star if it's an okay practice, a green star if you just got through a practice. If you've got your instrument out and you played something, you get a star, right? So the only thing that you're not getting rewarded for is literally 100% refusal, which I don't know about you, but we don't have that problem that often. Some days we do. And then you can kind of graduate to like, okay, well here's a whole month. Let's see how many gold stars we can get in a month. And it's okay that there'll be some days that don't have a star, and that's all right. But to have, if I had a penny for every parent who told me that they want the child to do it for the love of music, I'd be at least £100 richer than I am now. But they can't feel the love of music before they're accomplished musicians, and they will never become accomplished musicians unless they are enabled to get through the practice that takes you to be an accomplished musician.
Sometimes people who love music still do all the practice.
Yeah, exactly. I don't like practicing that much. I just took a massive exam in July. I really, really had to work hard to make myself practice every day, and I only started practicing every single day in April. And we were asking our kids and ourselves to practice 5 times a week, 6 times a week, maybe 7 times a week for their whole, from the age of 4 to 18? This is a big ask, and we have to recognise that they're not just going to do it because one day they'll play Mendelssohn Violin Concerto or Elgar Cello Concerto or whatever.
Or they'll be better human beings through the process
it's
of
all so nebulous that we really have to just find the tiny bits that are going to take them there. So here's a practice chart. When you've got 10 gold stars on it, let's go to the zoo. Okay, we've got 7 gold stars. Do you think you could do a really good practice today? Because we're going to go to the zoo. I'm so excited about seeing the lions. This has nothing to do with music, but they will learn the music because they want to go to the zoo or whatever. I appreciate the zoo, it's actually very expensive. City Farm, whatever. But I think that you really need to...
Happy City Farm was good enough.
Maybe 100 gold practices or take it to the zoo.
There are some other rewards though that some came out of parent talks. An extra bedtime story is very, very quick. Like quick rewards that, these kids are I can understand how that would be very attractive. We got carob. I got carob after going to...
It's a double-edged thing because, like with food, Garen's incredibly picky and
food is
but we were visiting my dad and my dad's wife said, if you eat that, it can be £5. And he went, okay, and ate it. And he wasn't. So now it's reached the point where you can be £5 and I'll eat my dinner, which is not right.
No. Well, especially not £5.
Like chocolate bar.
Yeah, what was it?
Chocolate buttons. We never give kids
It was some kind of veggie burger or something.
But also they enjoy through my practice. And for me, I know Zena, that's something she's attached to. She likes to play with others. So it's like when you can do that. She has a friend who comes also, she plays the cello. One day we'll play with Lottie, or you come to group. It's enjoyable. They are always enjoying themselves. So it's part of a whole team. So it's not necessarily just the reward, as you say, but there's something intrinsic to what you do here. That is, the children in group are having fun. So it's also something they want to be part of. Then you have to practice.
Yeah. So I really recommend that. I think it's very important for you guys to be organised, for us to be organised when we're doing practice. If you're dithering about, you can't find the list of what the teacher asked you to do, you don't know where the rosin is, you can't, find a music stand, your child will get fed up. And And kind of rightly so, because you're not organised, you're asking them to be organised, but then just hang on a second and wait for me while I'm being disorganised. This is not really okay. I highly recommend starting and ending each practice with a bow. The hug is also very lovely. One thing I do with Tilly, which has been so brilliant for us, is to do a story practice. So she will choose one of her storybooks, we choose one that doesn't have, it's alright, Ella's in there, doesn't have too many words on each page, and every time she does one part of the practice, so maybe she's doing, a box 10 times, she does it, she'll put her violin down, come and sit next to me, I'll put my arm around her, we read a page of the book. Now that she can read, she sometimes wants to read one page and I'll read the next page. If she's done something really, really well that I know she struggles with, she'll get 2 pages, and lots of those things, like, let's do a Lego practice where we make a house, and every time...
It's jubilation, not frustration. It's the end of the film.
Every time you do something good in your practice, you can put a piece of Lego on the house, and over the week we can build a massive castle. Yeah, or any of these things. Yeah, any of these things require a bit of creativity on your part, or to ask for help from other people who are paid to be creative about this stuff. And B, for you to have enough time. If your practice is 10 minutes of practice and you're trying to do it in 10 minutes, it's never going to work. Your child cannot do 10 minutes of practice in 10 minutes. They need, depending on their age, double, maybe triple, maybe 10 times long as what the actual exercises take. And that's one of the reasons that for my students, and I'm trying to encourage people here, but it does put some people off, which I don't want to put them off, but we started with half an hour practice from the first day Tilly started, and that meant that when she was 3 and a half and she was running around the house looking for her certain bear that she wanted to show the E string to, it was okay and we could be relaxed about it, because we had half an hour to do what would have taken about 4 minutes literally if she just got on and done it. And that now, as she gets more effective at her practice and more efficient, she can get more done without us extending the time. So I highly recommend half an hour. We don't always have half an hour, sometimes it's like we've got 10 minutes, But I think if you can have the extra time to be creative and be relaxed about how you get through the practice, it makes everybody a lot happier. If your practice is going downhill and you feel that you need to finish it, please try and do something to finish that the child likes. Just say, okay, I think that we need to stop, but I just would like you to do anything, literally anything, and please do not say anything you like. No, not that. Don't be silly, right? Anything you like means if the child wants to play angry music on the wrong side of the bridge by going, this is terrible, that you say, okay, well, great, you expressed yourself, excellent, let's have a bow and we'll stop. Okay? So you have to really be aware of what you offer to your child and make sure that you're prepared to follow through. And lastly, it's only practice. You can always try again tomorrow. And this is one of the great benefits of being in this game for a very long time, is that we have a lot of tries and that we can try and get better at whatever it is that we're struggling with. And you don't have to get better by tomorrow, you don't have to get better right now. You can get better a tiny, tiny bit every day over the next year. And, be nice to yourselves.
Great, thanks.
It's a pleasure. Can I just ask about whether it's possible to having opportunities for kids to play with others, like at other people's home? We've always started asking about charity, and I was just thinking she do such, she wants to do sponsored runs or whatever, but she's something with the violin, and then do the busking. Any more opportunities like that to show how they can enrich, how they can make other people happy with their music?
Yeah,
Might be nice.
it's really weird that you said that, because I was thinking this afternoon when we were talking about winter events that that's something we could do, and I have done it with a group at a Suzuki school, in fact. So the school that I do Suzuki in, we're going to a special needs school, and the kids who I work with there are basically from the richest families in the country. It's a really expensive day school, and it's really good for them to not only give this gift to these highly disabled children. I mean, I'm talking like in wheelchairs, and when we went last year, these kids who come from very, very privileged backgrounds were confronted with 5 kids in wheelchairs screaming because they were enjoying it so much, but it's such a different sort of thing. But yeah, just to give that, just to see something else and give the music to someone else and not just being them, I think would be really good. So we will definitely look into something like that. I can't promise it's going to happen
Basically, anything you would like organised, we are probably on board with doing it, and probably the reason we can't do it is because we are working ourselves into the ground. So if you are, I mean, if you'd be happy to ring round, organise a date, put a poster on the heart, and ask the teacher to come to lead it.
I live near the hospice, and I know they have volunteer things, so I can go and talk to someone there and ask if
Great.
it would be appropriate.
I'm sure they would love to have us do that.
Yeah. Does anyone have any other specific questions? I mean, we are sort of wrapping up because, but if there's anything specific that you felt like you wanted to come here and actually like you had your specific question about, you know, that if there is anything.
The 3 specific things I brought handouts for. There's more on the website. I mean, help, but the 3 that kind of I get asked about the most are my child doesn't want to practice, my child's really naughty during practice, or they can't focus during practice. And so these are my thoughts on those 3 things, and you can take a copy if you like. And lots of schools, I think it's really useful to find out what kind of discipline encouragement your school uses and to try and use the same one, because most of your children will have a sort of Pavlovian response to whatever it is that's the same as school. So lots of schools have a rainbow thing, and they start on green, and they have this whole thing about stay on green, and that if you are being naughty, well, it depends which way you go. Yeah, you go. I chose that you go down, and then if you're being good, you go up. So you can just, you know, find a tiny little toy, put it on the green, and then during the practice, go up and down as according to. And you know, I would recommend if you've been on violet for more than 5 minutes that you just end the practice. Because you're probably too jammed up in the child being naughty and you being cross to get out of it that day. And you know, you can have a special certificate for if you get to red or whatever, like just to be kind of creative about finding ways to encourage your child to exhibit the behaviour that you want them to exhibit. So you can take one of those if you like. The practice charts are here. And the last thing is that I have, this is just a sort of aside, we are trialling, and I would love you to all be part of the trial, a new type of practice chart which is like this, and to what we've noticed about practice and setting practice is that it doesn't seem to work for most parents to have a notebook where they make the lesson notes and they have a practice chart. So most people don't keep the practice chart bit, they just have the lesson notes. And then often in practice, you'll come back and if your teacher really quizzes you about what you did in the practice, it's not quite the same as what they actually wanted you to do. So this is an attempt to help make it really clear that, you know, if your teacher has asked you to practice 6 review pieces, you just leave 7 and 8 blank. And that peace and focus, so that you might be thinking about, you know, the quality of tone all the way through, and you just put tone in a load of, you know, repeat signs. And so if you would like to take one of these and use it, and then if it does work, we will just give out a kind of half-termly set of this in the starter pack, and then ongoing for the parents to use, because I think this will be really, really helpful for your teachers to see, you know, because also even though we have now gone from how was your practice, it was fine or it was bad, which is I think what most teachers were saying when we first opened, to how was your practice, could you give me some numbers, how many practices did you do, how many times did you listen to your CD? I think we are still basically, you know, if a child's practiced 7 times in the week, that's fantastic, and they get lauded with praise, and the parent gets lauded with praise, and actually it might still mean that they've only played 1 piece every day. So this is sort of, you know, refinement of practice tracking.
The other thing that I just wanted to say, that we really value having parents attend these talks, but you can see that out of 200 parents, there are 7 of you, and look, you are basically all in the same boat in so many ways with practice, and really it would be great if you can talk to other parents, about how practice is going with your child, and please don't feel embarrassed about the fact that if it's going bad, because it's very unlikely if you say, oh Marcia, how's your practice going? Oh, it's really hard. They go, oh well, it's brilliant. She just practices every day, smiles. She's becoming a brilliant, noble human
She's doing it for the love of
She's
music.
just wonderful. Either Marcia is lying, or she's got 1 in 500 million children who don't really exist. You know. So please talk to the other parents about it over having a drink of water or whatever, because I really feel like that's one way that we're preaching to people who are here. Yeah, who are here because they're already in this and you guys are already doing a fantastic job and you're just trying to do that job better. But all of the people who really need to hear what we're saying are somewhere else.
And it is going online, so do tell them if you have found it helpful. I hope you all have found it helpful, that they can watch it online, and you can watch it in half an hour bouts if you don't want to sit down and watch the whole hour and a half of it. But I will try and get it online. And you know, I think if there's one thing to sum up, I think we just, well, no, two things. You have to practice kindness, loving kindness to yourself and to your children, and you have to keep the big picture in mind. And part of keeping the big picture in mind is remembering that your child can't see the big picture. I think that's really
That was something Dora said for 6 months really, when we started, I just want to play the violin.
Yeah.
What is all this noise?
Yeah.
You know, and I understand it took me a while to understand.
Yeah, especially it's very hard in the beginning to motivate yourself when you want to play, so you're not really allowed to, you're not able to.
Yes, the twinkles are the hardest bit.
Yeah.
Pretty much, hands down, that until you have got into learning by ear and started learning other tunes, I would say categorically that getting through learning all of your twinkles is definitely the hardest, because it's the time where they learn actually how to be able to play, as you said.
And how to practice, and how to follow instructions, and how to focus, how to control their bodies, how to, you know, all of these things that they have to learn all at once before they can put it all together.
And another thing that you can do with your teachers, just about communicating with your teachers, and I know we have parent-teacher chats, but we can only really have them once a year, but sometimes it's just fine to just say, at the beginning of the lesson, can we have 5 minutes of the lesson, just us? Or 20 minutes, and just say, look, okay, can you go and play with the toys and actually just have a really, if you need to say things that you don't want your child to hear, but you have to talk to your teacher, that is the first point of contact, because we will be able to, kind of help with talking to your child and saying this behaviour is not acceptable if it's not, or just give you help and how to make it better. But we can't do anything if you don't talk to us.
Absolutely.
So there we go.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.